If your life were more enchanted and more magical, what would that look and feel like for you? You see, recently I've been diving into reclaiming that magic, refinding my wild woman, and connecting to the things that really truly bring me joy. And I do this not just from a hedonistic point of view, like creating more joy in my life, but also using it as a strategy to deal with the more challenging aspects of life on a daily basis. And I thought I was on my own in this search for something that felt so intangible, something that felt so far out there, almost, impossible to achieve. And actually, the more conversations I'm having, the more I'm realizing that there is a group of us who are searching for this deeper connection to ourselves, who are desperate to get back to nature, who are looking for enchantment and magic, and looking for a way to manage this very stressful and overwhelming world in a healthy way that serves our soul and creates this magic and purpose in our life. Now, part of the serendipitous journey that I've been on these last few months introduced me to an amazing woman called the modern day witch, Rebecca. And just a few weeks ago, I did her 7 days of magic on Instagram, which we're going to talk about later on. And I had the pleasure at interviewing her last week for this week's podcast. Rebecca has an innately magical, expansive, clear, effervescent energy that you just can't help but to get drawn into. So in an unusually long podcast session, I invite you to grab yourself a drink, snuggle yourself underneath a blanket, and enjoy just under an hour's worth of magical conversation. And be sure to check the show notes out, where I'm going to attach you to all of Rebecca's social media channels and direct you to where you can find the 7 days of magic on her IGTV as well. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Rebecca, and let's enjoy this magic hour of enchantment and magic together. Welcome to this very special episode of the Your Rich Life podcast. I think it's actually the first interview that I've done. And what better way to do that than with the lovely Rebecca, who is a modern day witch, priestess, all things magical. And I wanted to introduce you to her today to find out how you can bring more magic into your life and exactly what it's done and how it's changed her life. So Rebecca, welcome.
I'm honoured to be your first guest. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. It was meant to be. So before we dive in, at the start, before we started recording, I asked you how to pronounce your surname, and you actually told me that it was a priestess name. So could you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my name legally actually is Rebecca Anuin, and Anuin was my given priestess name. So I think probably four years ago now, I embarked on a priestess training down in Glastonbury, and I dedicated as a priestess of Caradwyn. So for 2 years, I would go down for every Sabbath, and we'd spend a weekend learning priestessing, rites of passage, and then we'd go to Lake Bala, which is, if you know about Caradwyn, she's a Welsh goddess, and her home, so to speak, is Lake Bala in Wales. And after the first year, we dedicated as a sister of Caradwyn. And on the second year, when we'd completed the training, we dedicated as a priestess of Caradwyn. And part of that process was we spent the day like in ritual, and towards the end, we spent the evening in meditation before we stepped into the lake to actually dedicate. And in that meditation, we stepped into like the cave of Caradwyn, and we were given a priestess name. And I think there was maybe 6 or 7 of us who were dedicating. And the name that I heard first was Anuvan, first of all. And I'm like, I'm not having that. I'm not taking the name Anuvan, because it's like the underworld. The otherworld, not the underworld, the otherworld. And it was almost like calling yourself Namaste. You know, it wasn't that I didn't want to associate with the otherworld. I'm like, oh, that name's too big. And then I heard the name Anuin. I was like, okay, I'll take Anuin. And it was interesting because I hadn't really twigged, because obviously you're in a meditative state, even though I could argue with I'm not having that name, that every person who received their name that day all had Anna at the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Like there were different versions of AN or ANA or ANU. And I just thought that was testament to the collective, that we didn't know that we were going to go and get our names at that point. It hadn't been spoken about. It was, you know, told of us of that evening. And we all came out with Anne names.
Wow.
Which is very Welsh, actually, apparently. And then what I hadn't realised, I took the name Anúin, and obviously I hadn't twigged, but obviously Cerridwen, Wen is like the goddess energy. But in Welsh, the W would be often pronounced as a V. So I still got Anúfyn.
Oh, wow.
But it was a new, but I call it Anúin. So,
that's amazing. And do you know what?
Yeah.
I think it just speaks to serendipity. Okay, so just for the listeners, I was introduced to you through a mutual friend, Catherine. And we'd spoken about her, and my friend Catherine kept saying, "Oh my God, you're going to love her. You must follow her on social media. You must meet her. Like, you got so much to talk about." And then it kind of just got forgotten. And then recently, Catherine and I have been going through very similar circumstances with our fathers being unwell, and you know. And we went for coffee, and she mentioned you again. I was like, oh, okay. So while we was in the coffee shop, I went onto your Instagram and followed you, and happened to see you was doing the 7 Days of Magic. And came home, was like, right, I'm doing that. And after the first day of the 7 Days of Magic, I'm like, I'm totally buying some charms. And I went onto your Etsy store and got some charms and messaged Catherine and said, oh my God, this woman's amazing. I love her energy, da da da. But what was even more serendipitous was, I think I messaged you and said, I've been doing this sort of goddess and witch kind of meditations on Insight Timer. And I really did. I said to you, I really got attached to, or you know, drawn in by Cerridwen, and you was like, oh my goodness. And I think out of all of the goddesses, all of the witches, like that name, there was just, and I actually, even before I mentioned that to you, I'd gone onto Amazon and bought the book. And I said to you, I bought this book, started reading it. So when you just started talking about the lake there and what you were doing, I thought, oh my goodness, it is just crazy serendipity of all the names. So
she had a way of doing that. That's how I first got involved. I mean, I had never thought about going off to do a priestess training at all. And then suddenly I came across this goddess called Cerridwen. And I was like, who is this goddess? You know, I'd heard of lots of other goddesses, but she, for me, had never kind of crossed my path.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, once she claims you, she's got you.
Right.
And it was, you know, the serendipitous moments really start to happen, because I started reading a book, nothing to do with gods and goddesses. There's Cerridwen, the goddess. Wow. And I'm like, how did she even sneak into the story? And she kept doing things like this. And I knew I had been claimed. So I say that, claimed with love, you know, it wasn't like absolutely. An awful thing.
Yeah.
When it was my birthday's in January, and a friend of mine, she sent me a gift mid-February. I wasn't even expecting this gift. It was just like such a random thing. And it ended up being from Lush, you know, that like the body shop kind of place in the UK. It was a bath bomb called Cerridwen's bath bomb.
Way.
And I was like, okay, I hear you. You're turning up in my books. You're now arriving by post. What do I do? So I was Googling about Cerridwen, and I just randomly came across this training of becoming a priestess of Cerridwen. And it wasn't long before that the term priestess really, there was something about it that felt home. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's something in this that feels very right. But I wanted a training in person, because I thought for this kind of training, it's really important to actually be with people for me in that moment. And it was going to be in South Wales. And I was like, great. You know, I live on the Welsh borders. I'll start in Wales. And it was the first time ever that I booked on a course in advance, because I like to leave things to the last minute. Usually, like, you know, if I'm going on holiday, I'm kind of booking it the week before. But this was February. So I signed up in February for a course that was starting in October.
Wow.
And I had never, like, I was like, that's a lifetime away. Yeah, I just had, my boy was about 2. So, you know, like lifetimes are, you know, the days are long. And so, yeah, I signed up, and she just started appearing everywhere. And she's, I don't know, there's something about her as a goddess that when I imagine her, a lot of goddesses for me are very ethereal, they're very, very floaty. But for me, Cerridwen is a very, almost like a druid. Mm-hmm. You know, she's a very of the earth. And I imagine her like collecting the herbs, and instead of wearing floaty dresses, which to be honest would just get caught in the bracken, she's like, you know, she's in her like leather chaps, and you know, she's there gathering the herbs and being very down to earth. And that really resonated with me. It's like that real reverence of the earth. But of course, Cara may show herself completely differently to different people.
Yeah.
But that was my experience of her, like
I
very
love that.
grounded, very matter of fact, no nonsense. And the thing with Cara, she's often seen as like the witch, which we know in our modern society can be seen as like the hag or something that's old and crone-like. But actually her story, her myth, is all about her being a mother. It's
Wow.
nothing to do with being old. It's to do with her being wise. It's to do with her understanding how to use the herbs, but it's about a mother's love for her child. Slightly misguided, some might suggest, but it is about a mother's love. So this whole idea of like Cara being like an old woman hag, that's not how she's presented in the myth, and it's not how I see her. Do I see her as a witch? Absolutely, because she's an empowered woman. She knows what she wants.
Yeah.
She knows how to gather the herbs. She knows how to go to the men to demand what she wants from them. She's a very empowered woman, but she's a mother rather than the end of her life. She's got the stories about her and her 2 children.
So there's a few questions that have come up from that then I want to ask you.
Yeah.
The first thing is, when you did your 7 days of magic on Instagram, which people I guess can still go get, right?
Yeah.
On your IGTV. So I would definitely recommend that you do that. In fact, as I'm talking, I've got like my black salt in front of me, and I've got in fact, I nearly set my house alight with my rosemary little brushes yesterday. They've dried out so much. I was like, oh my God, I want to blow them out. But something, when you just talked about something landed with you, and something you said when you was describing witch, and I'm going to ask you to use your words in a minute, like WITCH, but you said something about like how they're presented in fairy tales, and so often, like you say, we've got the old woman or the woman on the edge of the woods living alone with her potions and and you reframed it and said, isn't that magnificent? An independent woman with all this power, totally okay with her power and being totally okay with being on her own. And I was like, wow, that spoke to me, because I think there is so much there are so many unhelpful definitions about powerful women, or what the definition has to look like, or what we have to be like to do that. And actually I think it's crushing us rather than letting us grow.
Yeah.
So I love that. And so with that being said, one of the things you shared in your 7 Days of Magic was what you define as a witch. Could you share that?
Yeah, but before, if you don't mind, I just backtrack to what you were just saying. And I think if you think about when we grew up, I mean, obviously today is very, very different, but I'm 43. When I grew up in a time of like Disney films and
Yay.
Disney princesses, Disneyfication. Yay for all of that. I loved all of that. But the women role models, okay, you are an evil stepmother, you are a wicked witch, you are a helpless princess, or you are a fairy godmother. Okay, the only one there it's like the archetypes for women are usually mum, wife. They're how we are defined by our relationship with another person. It's never just the woman by herself. It's like, oh yeah, this is the wife of such and such, or this is the mother of such and such. In fairy tales, the bad characters that we're taught are the independent women that know what they want. Sure, they may, we've got the evil stepmom who wants the beauty and the youth, but she knows what she wants, but villainized for knowing what she wants. Not saying we should go and poison people, of course not. Or the
damn,
witch.
I just got my poisoned apples out.
Yeah. Or it's the evil old woman at the edge of the forest living by herself. Again, independent, defined by no one. When we talk about the evil stepmom, it's so ingrained in our society. When I used to have stepchildren, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a stepmom, but not the evil kind. It was just inbuilt in us. So how women are defined is usually by other people, but if a woman is independent or she knows what she wants, then she's vilified, then she's the evil character, or she's the witch. Whereas for me, it's like, if we can take, obviously no poison apples, but that idea of being an independent woman. I read something on Facebook the other day and I thought, oh my goodness, yes to this. And it said, like, maybe that woman's not rude. Maybe you're just conditioned by society to think women have to be kind and caring and compassionate, whereas we don't hold men to that same kind of standard. And it's very much, I talk about breaking the spells, and it's that spells of conditioning. It's that spells of what we expect a woman to be or a man to be. And it's like, we need to break down that narrative that the woman is the one who's going to be the kind, caring, compassionate one, and that she's selfish or a witch if she's like, actually, no, I want to choose this for my life path. And actually, no, I don't have time to help you because actually I'm doing something for myself. And I often think, particularly in the school area, the mum that's on the soccer team, on the PTA, baking all the homemade cakes. Oh my God, she's amazing. And she is, only if she is doing it and feeling nourished. If she's doing all of those things through a sense of duty, through a sense of expectation, and she goes home at the end of the night crying because she's so exhausted and hasn't had a chance to have a good night's sleep or do something that she wants, why are we putting that pressure on people? And yet the woman who's like, no, sorry, I can't help, I'm reading my book this afternoon. Oh my goodness, who does she think she is?
How selfish.
How dare she?
Exactly.
Oh my God. Because we're taught to prioritize other people over ourselves. And for me, I wanted to claim the word witch because words are so important. But I wanted to claim that word as a idea of, it's okay to be bold and unapologetic. It's okay to live on the side of the woods with just yourself. Or it's okay to say no to someone. And, the instinct would be, oh God, she's such a witch. She's so selfish. And I'm like, I am, yeah. Great. But it's that powerful archetype that of that woman that can work with the energies around her, that knows how to manage herself. It's not really about spells. Spells are part of the process. There are, they can help direct our energy, but it's much more about our relationship with ourself and breaking free of the judgments and expectations of our families, of society, and walking our own path. Now, you said that, my definition of witch, and it's like, I do love a good acronym. And so for me, when I think about like being a witch, it's like to be wealthy. It's like women need to have some kind of financial sovereignty, independence. They need to be able to have, when we have money, when we have wealth, and of course wealth isn't just money, but it's like when we have wealth, we can make choices. I always think like when we have money, we vote to create the world we want to live in.
Absolutely.
Now, sometimes people don't have that choice. But when we do have that choice, it can change our worlds. There are, I think it's called Kiva loans, isn't it? And they're like micro loans. And what they do is they loan to women in developing countries. And because they know that when the women hold the money, the culture, the society changes. So to be wealthy, and whatever that looks like for you, is really important. To have a healthy relationship with valuing yourself, valuing, the work that you do in the world, how you contribute. Is to be intuitive, because when we're intuitive, we trust ourselves, and it stops this, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? Oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And then 3 days later you backtrack and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. Because when you learn to trust yourself, when you learn to hear your intuition and cut out the noise, it's such an empowering thing. But you don't waste weeks, months, years going, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. I don't know. Maybe I should. Should I change job? Is this relationship good for me? It just helps all of our areas of our life. T is for thriving, because if we're not thriving, it's like, we want to thrive rather than just survive. And it's like, we've all had points where in our lives where we've just had to get through them. And hopefully on the other side, let's start thriving. Life is tough. There's no question about that. It's savage sometimes. And it's incredibly beautiful. And I think sometimes we want to live life as if it was just a flat line. It's like, I always want to be happy, or I always want things just to be on a line, and life isn't like that. But we can still thrive in moments when we feel on the floor begging for mercy. It's like we can still connect to something bigger than ourselves, or to know that we're supported or held, or that we've got people we can turn to. And it's like learning to create that kind of support for ourselves. It doesn't mean like happy, joy, jazz hands every single day, but it does mean just loving yourself enough to give yourself love and compassion and space to do, be, feel however it is that you want. So C, if you ever work with me, we're going to be creative. I always call the people in my community like crafty witches, partly because yes, it's time that we took back our power and decided to consciously create our lives. Now, absolutely, people are starting at different levels all over the place. People have different situations and circumstances, but we can create a life of our own choosing. We can start to choose how we respond rather than constantly reacting and feel like we're fighting about everything. So we do have a huge amount of power to create our experiences, even if they're not always the kind of experiences that we would dream of, but we can have. In fact, that was one of my biggest lessons in life. And it took me about 2 years to really learn it. Was someone told me once, "You're choosing that feeling, Rebecca." And I was like, how dare you? Like 20 at the time, how dare you? I'm not choosing. This thing was done to me. I have every right to feel like that. And they're like, you do have every right, but you're choosing that feeling.
Absolutely.
And I was so indignant. I was like, how dare you? And I was a stroppy little, 20-year-old. And then about 2 years later, it suddenly hit me. I was like, shit, I am choosing that.
Yeah.
Oh, and it like I say, I'm a bit of a quicker learner these days, but it really took me about 2 years to go, oh, okay, a situation happens and I can choose a different response to it now. Yeah. So for me, that's part of that creative process. But also, people listening won't be able to see this. We do like making our little brooms, or as you saw, like making our little witchy bundles. It's like just to create, because again, it just gives us something to focus on, and it gets us out of our heads using our hands. And I think that's a really important thing. It's like, I particularly love working with knot magic because I love tying knots. And I think part of that's because I have a love of climbing. So knots literally kept me safe when I fell off the cliff wall. But I also grew up in Cornwall. So my memory is walking along the river with all the huge ropes, like knotting the trawlers and keeping them anchored. So anyway, creative. And then H is for healthy. To have healthy relationships with yourself, with other people, to prioritize your body, to look at self-love, to look at self-care. So for me, that whole idea of witch is much more rounded than just, having a magic wand, although I do have several.
That doesn't surprise me.
I have made quite a few. So it's more about us claiming our inner power and recognizing that actually the magic is within us. It's not something that we become. It's like, we don't become magic, we are magic. We don't become intuitive, we already are intuitive. What we do is we remember our magic. With our intuition, we become a better listener. It's already there. And I often think it's like, we're whole, we're healthy, we don't need fixing. And yet we spend most of our life searching for that fix. Oh, I need to be fixed. I need to be healed. I need to have this bit resolved, and then I'll be fine. And it's like, we already are. We're already all of that juicy goodness. But over the years, we've just got layers of crud layered and layered on top of us. And what we do is we just trawl through and go, oh, get out of here. Get off. And it's one of the things, I'm sure I would have talked about it in the 7 Days of Magic, is like this concept of becoming full of yourself.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, because when we're full of our own experiences, when we're full of our own dreams and our desires, when we're full of life, we can't take on anyone else's nonsense. We can't take on their judgments. We can't take on their expectations. Because when you have that insight, when you're like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm changing this in my life, it's in that moment when you feel full. Yeah, you're like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. When it comes from the energy of like, yes, let's go. And then all the doubts creep in, but they're generally not our doubts. We just give our power away to societal stories or family stories or old identities that we have of ourselves. And it's like, no, we need to keep nourishing ourselves so that we feel full of our dreams, our desires, of our own energy. That doesn't mean that we have to cut out people from our lives. Well, maybe sometimes it does, but it's not about other people. This is about our relationship with ourselves and standing in your own power, anchoring into what's important for you, taking a stand for it, having your boundaries. And, that's what makes you a witch, of knowing your energy and then being able to consciously direct it.
I think what I love about the way that you explain it is that it speaks to today's modern day problems, but that whole like you say, the archetypal stuff that we don't know it until it really begins to hurt us. That's what I've noticed with the work that I do. Until it becomes something where we experience the pain, So, you know, my story was I had horrific postnatal depression with both of my children because I didn't think that well, part of it was I was in a relationship that I didn't want to be in, but I thought I had to stay because that's what my parents did, you know, and then I wasn't the maternal mum like my mum was, so therefore I wasn't a very good mother. And, you know, I didn't look the right way, and I didn't do the PTAs, and I didn't do the baking, and I didn't do the this, and I didn't do the that, and I was like, I'm really the worst mother in the world. So, and there was lots of stuff before that. And part of my healing process this year and sort of coming to terms with my dad being sick, I was listening to Ram Dass's Becoming Nothing on Audible. And he said exactly that. It was that reminder that we are, everything we believe we are is relational to where we live, who's in our family, where we come from, what colour hair we've got. But all of those things make your identity relational. And if we can consistently and courageously kind of start to not disown that, but like step away and go like, who am I as I was created? Like, then what beliefs and what do I want to believe to be true? You know, what do I want to believe to be true about like the kind of relationship that I want, or the relationship that I want with my body, or what's possible for me, or how much money I can have, or, you know, what I can achieve, all of those things. But we have to be able to look at it through different filters. And so whether we look at it from this witch perspective, or somebody else might go, you know, I'm going to just go get a coach, right? But ultimately, we're all doing the same work to help somebody go, what kind of life do you want? And more importantly, how do you want that life to feel? Because I think it's really easy to get caught in, and I know I've definitely done this in my business, getting caught in what society defines as successful.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
so you're definitely going to want this amount of money. You definitely should be aiming for the Aston Martin and the private jet and the best hotels in the world and the Louboutin shoes. And I don't know about you, but I'd much rather be wearing flip-flops and going to a country pub with a roaring log fire and eating chips and a glass of red wine. That would be my thing. Like, and like, obviously
I'll see you there.
This is not to say that there are some people that go, no, I totally want the Ritz and I totally want. That's fine also. But understanding what is it that we gain from that? Because something that a question I've been asking my clients a lot recently is, what does personal freedom look like to you? And what brings you the most joy and freedom? And you know, not one person has answered me yet.
Yeah.
Every woman says, I don't know.
It's interesting because when I do my kinesiology, I have a questionnaire that goes out beforehand, and I'm always like, what are the 3 feelings that you want more of in your life? Joy and freedom are always on there, and success. And because a lot of people I work with are business owners, and my question always to them is, what does success look like to you? And often they don't know. I remember this one woman, honestly, she was incredible. She had 2 very young children. She'd just done an incredible launch, and she was like, right, I'm getting ready for the next one. And I'm like, are you? And I said, oh, is that what you want to do? And she just looked at me with absolute amazing bewilderment. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, do you want to do another launch straight off the back of the other one? She was like, but that's what I'm supposed to do, isn't it? And I was like, why is that? She goes, because I have to grow my business. And I'm like, is your business at a size you're happy with? And she went, yeah. I was like, do you want to grow it? And she went, I hadn't thought about it.
Wow.
And I was like, you could just enjoy this moment and then launch in a couple of months or next year, or, you know, because she had made enough money to, you know, keep her family well for a substantial amount of time. And she was like, I never even thought about it. Because she had got so, and we all do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm talking business right now, but it might be, oh yeah, I leave school, I go to university, I get married, I have a child, I have a, you know, and all of those things. It's like we just step into what I call spells, that we're just under the spell of what we should do.
Yeah.
And we just learn, like you said about your relationship that you were in, you're like, oh, but that's what my parents did. Yeah. We just take on the conditioning and the expectations of our family, of our culture, of the society that we live in. And we're like, oh yeah, success looks like this. And unless I have that, I'm not successful. And it's like, no, what is success on your own terms? You know, what is it that would be successful for me right now? My little boy's 7, and success looks like being there for him. He was in some swimming tournament the other day, and I could just take the day off to go and watch him and cheer for him. Lovely. You know, I can do the school run. I can go to every parents' evening. is my business smaller than it could be? Absolutely. But to me, that's success. That's the freedom I want. Will that change as he grows and I change and grow? No doubt it will change. But right now, that's for me what success looks like.
And
And
it is
yeah.
that, sorry, it is that ebb and flow, isn't it? It's like, when my children are much older, like mine are 20 and 21, right? So, and I was very much in that conditioning and feeling guilty, not taking the time and working all the hours, and because my business was quite new back then. And whilst I would do it differently now, you learn from that. And it's like, now I just said to you, like, the current expression of my business is being closed down, as just because of personal circumstances, and I'm okay with that, because like for me, success right now is being able to be there to fully support my mum as as my dad gets worse and stuff like that. So but I think do you not think it takes so much courage to really dive deep into that and say, this is what success looks like? And it's also, I think, that balance between the contentment and the gratitude for where we are, and striving healthily for the next thing. If there is a next thing for you, like, you said about like the straight line, but we all know that things are either always improving or not improving, right? So we're going up or we're going down.
It's that thing, isn't it? We're either expanding or contracting.
Yeah.
We can't hold the energy of both.
Yeah.
But that's natural. From even if you think of our breath, we're breathing in, we pause, we breathe out. It's the natural expression of life. The seasons, we're growing or we're decaying.
Yeah.
Life, everything around us is ebbing and flowing. This idea that life should be a static line, or that there's like one path to success. Even if you have a menstrual cycle, your hormones do this. They wave, they go up and down.
My husband knows that.
Oh, do you know what I mean? It's like there is a time, and even the moon cycles, our body cycles, the moon cycles, the seasons, every day and night, everything in our life is cycles, and yet we try and control and live this like very rigid linear, this is the path to success should look like climbing a mountain, and it's like, that's not life. Everything is inhaling or exhaling constantly, ebbing and flowing, moving in, moving out, growing or decaying. Sometimes it happens in a moment, like a breath. Sometimes it might take an entire lifetime. But there were always these seasons and these cycles within cycles within cycles. So the idea that there is one path that you can squeeze yourself into, it's like, no wonder we have so much let's call it depression, or people who are just in a funk and they don't know why, and they're blaming themselves. Because when I first started kinesiology 20 years ago, I used to have people come to me with IBS and eczema and very physical symptoms, and they're like, Rebecca, I think I've got an allergy, can you check for me, can you clear the allergy for me? And high 90% of the time, it was never about the food they were consuming. Absolutely. Or the substances they had been in contact with. I was like, there's emotional stuff going on here. And when we dive deeper, it's because the women would have everything that they thought they should have. They'd had the education, they had the marriage, they had the children, they had the car, the house, the holidays, and they still felt empty. They didn't feel fulfilled, and they felt guilty because they had everything they should have and felt bad. So instead of being able to go, get me out of here, I'm not happy, it was more socially acceptable for their skin to erupt, to their bowels to explode, for them to go and try and get medicine to clear the symptom, but it wasn't the cause. And so is it the easy path to say, do you know what, I'm in a relationship, I'm not happy, how do we move forward from that? Is it the easy path? Absolutely not. No, this is not for the faint-hearted. But it's also the path that just feels right. When you step onto that, you breathe this sigh of relief to go, oh, I get to remember who I am before the world told me who I had to be.
Absolutely.
I've got a self. I don't have to be selfless and give to everybody else.
I mean, I remember when God bless my first husband, not to want to be mean, but I remember when he moved out, and I remember driving to pick the girls up from school and smiling, but I was so not used to my smile actually coming from the inside. I remember touching my face and going, oh, that's what it feels like when your smile means something. And it was like, it sounds so corny, but it was so powerful. And it was just, I mean, I was 29, I think, at the time, something like that. And it was just, and I thought that was the first time, and speaking back a little bit to what you said before about, oh, I can choose these feelings. That was when it first started to hit, oh, like I can choose my life. And this is a really long cycle of learning for me because I'm 46 now and I'm still learning that. And this is one of the biggest lessons my dad is currently giving me, is that he's reminding me to like honor my values and to be courageous. And when we go back and speak to what you said about people wanting that sort of linear sensation, I think so many people are scared to feel the difficult emotions because they see it as a failure. But I was doing a workout this morning, and we were doing some kind of hideous plank move, and the woman's like ripped, right? So she's doing this plank and she's looking amazing, and she's like, right, who's shaking? And I was swearing at her through the TV, but she was actually shaking, and she said, great. That means you're doing it right, because can you feel every part of your body working in unison to keep you stable? And I'm like, yes! Yeah. That's what those, we don't call them negative emotions, but that's what those more challenging emotions are. They're saying to you, okay, we're either guiding you that this isn't the right thing for you, or it's a stretch emotion. And rather than us wanting to kind of self-medicate with, drugs or fags or alcohol, whatever, let us learn how to make friends with those and manage those. I was talking to a client yesterday, and she said, I've just got to remember it's one step in front of the other, one step in front of the other. I said, yeah, but sometimes we can do a side step. Because if we do one forward and one to the side, we've got a cha-cha, right?
Yeah.
So now it can just be fun. And
that's fun.
Exactly. So it comes back to what you said at the very beginning about the importance of words, because those words, the definition and the image that we hold in our head and the associated physiology and psychology of that's determining how we act in our life, and how we, like you said, something can happen and you might choose to feel hard done by or helpless, or like you haven't got any power, whereas somebody else goes, oh gosh, this is really super uncomfortable. They probably wouldn't use that language if they were in my community, but this is is oh, jolly hoggy sticks and all that. Okay, so what's next? What's the next healthiest decision for me? And I had this conversation with myself this week. I'm actually going to record another podcast on it called the Daily 3-Choice Challenge. Right? So if we can just make a healthy choice, and sometimes that healthy choice is, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to release that person. Sometimes a healthy decision is having that massive slab of cake, right? Sometimes if it might be you might want to go out for a climb, or, whatever that healthy decision is for you. But it's about, we have to have the right definitions and associations with that to help us make the decisions for ourselves, not because of what society says, or in the Insta-pretty world says, oh, you should be doing that. And I think that's where we've lost so much power, because of the contraction that we feel from not, first of all, most people don't know that they're conditioned to that degree. And then when they start to realise, it can feel so overwhelming because there's so much to break down. But if we do that one step at a time, whether it's a forward or side step or whatever, as long as we don't kind of go backwards too often. So I know we've been talking for, it's 11:11. And we've been talking forever. And we could probably talk for another 3 hours, but we won't. So I would love for you, if you wouldn't mind, sharing just a few, maybe 3 ways that, and going on how, because when we started talking, we didn't actually set any tone for the conversation, but I think we're actually talking about not just taking power, but how do we change our lives, knowing that it's going to be a challenge, but knowing that I have a bit of an issue with the word deserving, but that, you can have a more magical life experience that is fulfilling, that is joyful, that is expansive, that is cyclical. So with that in mind, what are sort of 3 things that you would suggest from your training and your level of witchery and priestessery and just amazingness that people could do on a daily basis, maybe to bring more of that magic into their life?
Okay. The first one I would say is something that I call a sacred pause. And all you do is you do something that steps you out of your everyday life for a moment. And the way that I say, the quickest way to do this is close your eyes, put your hand over your heart. That's it. You close your eyes, you shut out the noise, you put your hand on your heart to connect with your body. And that's it. Because what you do is you come back to your body. Because, oh, I've got to do this. I'm late for this. Oh my goodness, that to-do list. And we're just like, oh, all the time. And if we just go, hang on a minute. I mean, what's that take? 5 seconds. Take that sacred pause. Okay. You're recentered. And then from that place, you can make a choice. You can say, actually, am I really hungry? Or do I need a glass of water? Actually, it's that old fashioned count to 10, isn't it? Do I actually want to scream at the children? Or do I just need to go, oh my God, you're hurting. Okay, come and talk to me about it. Or do you go, oh, I've got a meeting coming up. I'm so nervous. I've got to give a presentation. But actually you come back into your own body and you're like, oh, I talk about this all the time. Of course I can do this. And I always say, add it into something that you already do. So, you wake up in the morning, just take a moment. When you're waiting for the cup of tea to boil, take a moment. When you get in the car before you start the engine, take a moment. And it's just like taking that. I mean, you could do something like light a candle or pull an oracle card or say your favorite prayer or mantra or sing a song. But I think the easier we keep it,
totally.
the more powerful it is. So just like the world's going noisy and you just go, breathe in deeply, exhale fully. Oh, okay. Everything's just changed. You've just reset back to neutral. So no matter how crazy the world is, the more of these little moments we can add into the day, the more we come back to center and we recognize what we're really feeling. Because sometimes people say to me, oh my God, Rebecca, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, stop right there. Ask yourself, is that your emotion? And they'll be like, oh, no, it's not. It's something their parents have told them. It's like they've just been at work and someone's losing their mind about something because, hello, look at the world right now. And it's like, come back to center. Are those feelings you're feeling, are they even yours? And they're like, oh, no, they're not. So that's two things you can just do very, very quickly. When you're feeling something that's too much, is this mine? If it is yours, brilliant, you can do something about it. If it's not yours, well, you can just let it go. Both ways are empowering. Now you can deal with it from a place of, oh, I'm just dealing with it. I was talking last night and, it's like cooking toast. You put some bread in the toaster, you burn the toast. You could go, oh my God, I'm so useless. I've burnt the toast. I can't do anything right. Oh my God, when will I learn to do toast? Or you could go, oh, I've burnt the toast. Put that in the bin, put new bread in. That's it. All you did was burn toast. It was not a judgment on you. It was not describing your value. You just burnt toast, put it in the toaster. So it's like, is this mine? Oh no, it's theirs. Oh, it's just burnt toast. I'm getting rid of it. We don't need to make it. It's not always has to be about us. But I would like to share an exercise, which I just think I love it because I think it reminds us to find the joy in life, even in the the challenging times. But I call it the red knicker revolution. Red knickers completely optional, but every morning you wake up and you're going to get dressed. Okay, now it may or may not include knickers. Okay, depending.
Judgment.
Depending on what you fancy. But I want you to stop and go, okay, what do I want to feel more of today, or what do I want to experience more of today? And you might think freedom. That might mean no knickers. But you might think, oh, I want some extra support today. Well, that might mean knickers up to your boobs.
We love those knickers.
Nice and cozy and feeling all of it. Or it might be like, oh, actually I want to feel more passionate today. It's like, well, what knickers make you feel more passionate? And it could be red, or it could be lacy, or it could be fun polka dots, or it could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday pants. It doesn't matter. It's not about what there is, but it's like consciously choosing how you're setting up your day. Okay, so you've stopped, you've gone to get dressed, and you're like, okay, knickers, oh, I want to feel more joy today, so I've got purple polka dot knickers, brilliant, put those on. And then choices have consequences. You've chosen joy, so okay, you've consciously made a choice, you feel quite good about that. the next thing, you'll go downstairs and you're like, okay, what should I have for breakfast? Well, you've already made a good choice. So now you're like, oh, my next choice. And you could go, oh yeah, joy. What's going to bring me joy? And then you eat something that brings you joy. Now, for some people, that might be Marmite on toast, but for some people, it might be mango or watermelon or something vibrant, because that's the energy of joy. And then you're like, okay, what's my next choice? And so when we make that one good choice, which leads to another good choice, and we have this like spiral going upwards, and it's like, yeah, and all because you've consciously chosen your knickers. Whereas if you just get up, you put a pair of knickers on that got holes on, you're like, oh shit, I need to get some new knickers, they're terrible.
Are you in my bedroom right now?
Wow. And and you're like, oh, so you put them on and you feel a bit frumpy now because you need to get them, and you keep forgetting, forget to do that. And then you feel a bit, and then you go and like choose a breakfast that maybe just feels, just makes you feel a bit, and then your next choice, oh, should I go out for a walk? Oh, it's a bit rainy, I'll just stay on the couch. And so all the choices become a bit, whereas if we start our day by making a conscious choice and we claim what we want more of in that day, each day might be different. That choice leads to that next choice. So when you're like, oh, it's raining, should I go for that walk? You're like, yeah, because I want to feel good. I want to feel energized. And that rain's just going to whoosh everything away. And all it did was start with you choosing your knickers. And I think that's how we can start to take in that sacred pause. What do I want today? Yeah. How we can come back into connection with our own needs and our own desires. Because you're not saying, oh yeah, what would my child want from me today? You're going, actually, what do I want today? How do I want to feel? Oh, I've got a big presentation coming up, I want to feel confident. What are my confident knickers? Totally. Or I've got a nice date today, I was like, oh, I want my sexy knickers on. Yeah. And it's like choosing the whole range of emotions we had. And I love what you said earlier. It's not like emotions aren't good or bad, they're just signposts. Yeah. This feels good. Well, that's more aligned with your energy. How can you do more of it? This feels, air quotes, what you would call bad. Brilliant. You want to do less of that. How can you navigate that? And I think we're so terrified of feeling uncomfortable, particularly emotionally, that we run away from all of the feelings. But like you said about that plank earlier, it's like, if you want to get fitter and stronger, we go to the gym and we break down our muscles. That's how they grow back stronger. And so the next day after a good workout, or maybe the second day afterwards, we're like, oh God, I can't sit down, those squats. But you feel proud. Exactly. You're like, I can't sit down properly, but look at me going to the gym or doing my squats. And it's the same emotionally. When we hit those moments of discomfort and we're like, I'm not sure I can do this because it goes against everything my family has ever said. I can't do this. I'm selfish. I don't know how to put a boundary in. As soon as you feel that quiver, as soon as you feel that discomfort, you're in the energy of growth. And lean into it. Do the same thing you would do if your muscles were sore. Hold yourself with love and compassion, slow it down, have an Epsom salt bath, stretch gently. It's the same thing. Stop running away from the discomfort. I'm not talking pain. Obviously, if you'd ripped a muscle, that's a whole different thing. Yeah. But we're talking about growth and discomfort. It's like, get comfortable with discomfort, because that's where the magic is. That's where the growth is. That's where the change is. And that's desperately what we're calling out for right now, is that change and that knowing that we can make a difference. So for me, going full circle, that's what magic is. It's about having our dreams, our desires, our energy and our actions in alignment, so that we can create change, but not just create change, create lasting, sustainable change that supports us. And we can do spells to support that, and we can do affirmations, we can do all the other things to support it. But the real magic comes from that deep internal alignment. So like your quivering muscles when you're doing the plank, it's knowing that everything is in place. Are there challenges? Absolutely. But you know what? Witches can do that. Everybody can do that. It's like, of course I can do that. I'm a witch. Hashtags names are important.
And it does. And just to finish up, I think that the last thing is that we need to be encouraging people to kind of lose that quick fix mentality, right? That, if I get it quickly, then I'm not going to feel the pain. Well, you are, because you're going to feel the pain. It takes a lot harder to get the results in a short period of time. And you're going to keep doing that in cycles because you haven't changed the identity. Everybody
can do it. It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. I've seen it as a personal trainer. I've seen it as a coach. I've seen it as, I used to do healing. I've seen it all. Like, people come in, they want it like that because they think, oh, that thing there is where my stable, happy emotions are. I'm calling BS on that, right? Because you get there and you're going to want something else. and you haven't changed that identity. So it's that, you know, I did that plank today. I don't think I'm going to wake up with a six pack tomorrow. It would be nice. It would be really nice. But I might need to do a few more of those workouts first before that actually happens. And it's just that reminder. And I've just been listening to, or I am listening to the book Happy Sexy Millionaire at the moment.
Okay.
It was recommended by a client, and I was like, I really cannot listen to any more personal development rah-rah. Actually, it's totally not that. It's very much about, you know, don't sucker yourself into believing that money is where all your happiness is, because it's not. And the guy said he had this massive reminder. His first business, floated on the stock exchange, and I think it went for like 200 mil or something like that. And he said, and I felt nothing when I found out. Nothing. He said, so I phoned my business partner, and he felt nothing. And I was like, what's wrong with us? This is what we wanted. He said he was walking back home to his obviously posh apartment or whatever, and he had to walk through an area that he used to walk through as a student when he had no money. And he said, I remember he said, and a song was playing in his ears, an anchor, right, anchored him back to his college days. And he said, I just had this flashback to the night when he had no money, and he went to a takeaway because he used to be able to find money on the floor and stuff. And he found this 20p, but for whatever reason, he dropped it down the back of one of the chairs. So he's like, oh crap, like I needed that 20p. So he puts his hand on the back of the chair and finds a £1 coin. So he goes, oh, I'll just do that again. So within like however many minutes, he got £13. And
Nice.
he said, I felt better with the £13 than I did with the 200 mil, because he said, and then he went into sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He was already at survival. And what he'd forgotten was that as human beings who are here having this life experience and learning on a soul level, is that it's the journey, and we don't value the journey anymore because we think the journey is the hard bit and the good bit is at the end. But we've got it all back to front. So that's the final reminder from me.
Yeah, and tapping into your cha-cha earlier, and it was like, you know, life's kind of like dancing. And it's like when you dance, the idea isn't to get to the end, otherwise you just take one step left and go ta-da, finished. You know, the actual joy of the dance is in the movement, it's in the journey, it's in the expression. And that's the same as life. You know, the life isn't just about getting to the end. You know, otherwise we could do things about that, but it's not. It's about the moments, it's about the relationships, it's about our choices, it's about how we show up. And, you know, very much front of your life right now, but it's like we are here for a blink of an eye.
Absolutely.
You know, and that can be, and I think it comes back to like, we can make those choices, which gives us great responsibility, which some people can be like, oh my God, that's just awful. But actually you can look at it as the biggest freedom. You know, if we're only here for a blink of an eye, and, you know, it's like, well, do what the hell you want, because we're only here for a blink of an eye. You know, you could go, oh my God, we're only here for a blink of an eye, I'm not going to be able to do all the things. And it's like, or you could be like, I can do all the things because I'm only here for a blink of an eye.
Absolutely. I love that. Oh, Rebecca, it's been a joy. We should like do a TV channel.
I'll see you there.
Yes, so I will make sure that I put all of your social media handles on the show notes.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for your time and your energy. It's been a joy, and hopefully the listeners will come and find you and look at some of your magic, and definitely go do the 7 days of magic, because that was pretty insane. I loved it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.